So we're going to get into the harder version of changing from standard form to vertex form. And specifically today, it's going to be how do you convert from standard form to vertex form when a does not equal 1. So far, when we've been looking at this, we've only been having, if we look at our standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c, we have not had a number out front of for the a. It's always just been 1, but now we're going to have a number there. And so that's going to have us do like an additional step, and it makes things a little bit more difficult, but for the most part, from day 1, it's the same thing. But we do have an additional step to do things. So as you can see in this first example, we're going to go from vertex form, or we're going to write this in vertex form from standard form, and the only thing that's different here is that we have a 2 out here, and that's going to make things a little different. But I'm going to go through the steps here, and then so there is one added step that wasn't here before that we have to do here. Otherwise, most of the stuff is the same, as you'll see. So the first thing we have to do, like we did before, is we're going to label ABC, and we're going to bring over the C value. So the first step is to subtract C to both sides. So in this case, I'm going to minus 10. So you have y minus 10 equals 2x squared plus 8x. And then, usually at this point, this is where we put the blank spots in there. But we actually have a different second step here. Then we're going to get rid of this 2 that's out here. We're going to factor out the a value, which was 2, that we labeled up here. So we're going to take out the 2 as if it's the GCF. Now in this case, it actually is a GCF, but we're only taking out a 2. We're not taking out the x. So let's rewrite this. We have y minus 10 equals 2 times the quantity. Now make a pretty big set here. And once we divide both these things by 2, we get x squared plus 4x. And then we're also going to put our blank spot in here now, because we want that to be included in what we took out here. So we also have to put a blank spot over here. And then we're going to do the same thing we did before. It's just going to look slightly different because now we have this in a set of parentheses. So now we're going to go off to the side and do our b over 2 squared. But now it's kind of weird because our b value is actually 4. It's not 8. So we have a new b value that we're going to use. So we're going to go off to the side. Now we're going to use this number and go off to the side and use 4, divide by 2, and square it. So that gives you 2 squared, which is 4. So we're going to add 4 here. So the second thing that's actually new about this is that we're not going to add 4 over here. Because when we put 4 in here, that's inside the set of parentheses, what did we actually add to that side? It was not 4. What we actually added was this 2 that's being out here would actually be multiplied by everything, right? If you were to redistribute this. So we really didn't add 4. We actually added 2 times 4, which is 8. And so that needs to be on this side now. I should probably back that up there. 8. So this is another hard thing that not only do we have to take out the GCF, but we have to leave that space inside the parentheses. And when we put a 4 here, we're actually putting in an 8 total. To balance this, we have to have an 8. So let's combine the left-hand side. We have y minus 2, 8 minus 10. And again, these last 2 steps are the same. We're going to factor this right-hand side. So we have a 2 here. Now we're going to factor this. Well, multiplies the 4 and adds to 4. That's going to be x plus 2. There's 2 of them. So that's this whole thing turns into that. And the last thing we're going to do is change it to vertex form. So we're going to add the 2 to both sides. There's just 2's everywhere on this one. So that goes away. So we're going to get our final answer. Y equals 2 times, squeeze those 2 things together, x plus 2 squareds, and then plus 2. And then from this, we can look at it and say, what is the vertex? And we would say that is the opposite sign of the first one. So it's negative 2, comma, whatever's on the outside, 2. And that's your answer. So it has like an additional like 1 or 2 steps. If I were to highlight it, right, the second step here happens right here. We factor out the 2. That's new. But then we also have to remember that when we do this part, it's just different because it has to be 2 times 4 is what we're adding to both sides. So try another one. go through the steps. We're going to label ABC. First thing we're going to do is minus 3. Y minus 3 equals 4x squared plus 40x. And we can put the blank here, but we don't have to do it now. We get to factor out the a value now. So factor out the a value if it's not 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take out a, which is 4. So y minus 3 equals 4 times x squared plus, divide them both by 4, 10x plus a blank. And then go ahead and factor this. Well, I guess we have to find the number first. We got to divide by 2 squared, so we know how to factor it. So that'll be 5 squared, or 25. Okay, so if we're plugging in 25 here, right, what would we plug on this side for a blank spot? It would not be 25, it would be 4 times 25, so it actually is 100. So here we have y plus, add them together, you get 97. And this side we can factor. That would factor into x multiplied by 25, add 10. We're going to get 2x plus 5s. Then I'm going to subtract 97 on the outside here and get our final answer, which would be y equals 4, parenthesis, x plus 5 squared minus 97. And so our vertex would be -4, comma, -97. Because, or I'm sorry, not -4, -5. Look at the wrong number. Remember, this is the one you change to the opposite sign, and that one you stay, this keeps the same. So I don't think we're doing any graphing at this point, but if we were to be able to graph these, we would not graph this, obviously. We would want to change it down to this form here as our answer, and then we would be able to graph it. Of course, -97 is kind of low, so we probably wouldn't get something like that to graph by hand. So there's some team huddle. There's only 4 problems to try. But then we're going to move on, so you guys stop and do that, and then we're going to move on to what happens when a is negative. So we have 2 different types. We're going to do a is negative, and then we're also going to do rational numbers. So we have a couple left to do. So when a is negative, so we're going to do the same steps. I'm going to go a little faster this time. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So we go y plus 4 equals -3x squared plus 6x. And then we're going to factor out this. The only difference here now is we have a -3, and again, we don't want anything to be in front of x squared. So no matter what is here, we're going to factor that out. So we're going to take out -3. And how does that affect the rest of this? It would just change the signs. This becomes positive x squared. This becomes a minus. Divide them together here. You get 2x. Then we can put in our blank spots. We could also do that over here. Plus blank. Then I'm going to go in the middle here. I'm going to use this number. We're going to do -2 divided by 2 squared. That would be -1 squared, or 1. And again, we're not adding in 1 here. We're actually adding in -3 times 1, which would be -3. So don't forget there's a negative out here. So we get y plus 1 equals -3. Factor this. That'd be an x, 1 times 1, right? You have no options. But then if you're trying to add -2, they need to both be negative, like that. And then we'll subtract 1 and finish this off. So -3 is your front number. X minus 1 squared minus 1. A lot of negatives on that one. Also, if you remember the number out front here, this -3, that's going to tell you that it is a sad face parabola. And in this case, what is our vertex? That would mean we would be going to the right one, so positive 1, and then down 1, -1. So I think you got to get the idea of negative. Let me go through the next one here, and then we'll talk about the rational ones, and I think that'll be pretty much it for this video. Okay, so we have ABC here. We're going to add 3. We go y plus 3 equals, let's go ahead and go a little faster and maybe skip some steps. We can take out the negative 6 now, since we know we're going to divide by that. And that becomes x squared. Divide this by negative 6, that's minus 2x. Plus a blank spot. Same thing over here. Then we go off the side and do the negative 2. Actually, we have the exact same setup here. The negative 2's here. So we're actually going to be putting a 1 here. But the number on the left becomes a negative 6. Then we can put these together. Y minus 3 equals negative 6. This is going to factor the exact same way as this one here. So we get x minus 1 and another x minus 1. I'm just going to make it squared. And then we add 3. All right, so we have y equals negative 6 times x minus 1 squared plus 3. And that would be your answer. And then you should be able to answer the vertex, which would be positive 1. Whoops. And we do not change the outside, just the middle, inside. That becomes positive, and this stays positive. 1, 3. So really no different when it's negative, except for when you take out a negative number, you have to remember to change the signs of what's on the inside. All right, how about when b is rational? Write the following in vertex form, and then we'll also identify the vertex. So you'll notice this one's going to be a little bit more difficult, only because the number we're taking out here is going to force this middle number to not be very nice. So let me show you what I mean. If we label this ABC, and we add 6, we go y plus 6. And then here we have 5x squared minus 2x. Now, if you look at this, you would say like the only thing you have as a GCF is probably x, right? So that's an issue, right? We can't take out the 5 because it doesn't go into 2. 2 doesn't go into 5. You know, that's an issue. But what we're going to do in this case is we're actually going to force the GCF to be 5, as in we're going to take out a 5 as a GCF. So no matter what's there, don't care what it is, we're going to take it out. So how does that affect this? Well, first off, we have x squared, like we want, because we want this to be nice factoring. Unfortunately, when you do negative 2 divided by 5, because that's what you would have to do, that would give you a decimal. So it's a negative 2 over 5. Or you could say it's negative 0.4x. And then we'll leave our blank spot in there. Same thing over here. So the only bad thing about this is now that we're going to be using some decimals rather than just whole numbers. That's okay. Then we're going to go off to the side. And we're going to use the negative 0.4 and do what we normally do. Divide by 2 and square it. So you do 0.4 divided by 2, which is 0.2. And then square it. I guess it's negative. What's 0.2 times 0.2? That'd be 0.04. Alrighty, so we're going to put in 0.04 here. But that does not mean we put that over here. We actually have to multiply 5 times the 0.04. And that gives us 0.2. So I'll put over here 0.2. So we can add these together. We get y plus 6.2. And then here we have to factor. Now, I don't want to really try to factor this as a decimal. If you remember the shortcut, it's always what happens here after you divide, this negative 0.2. So we're going to have x minus 0.2 squared. You have to remember that trick, though, to go from here to here. Then minus 6.2. So this one is a pretty ugly one. We get y equals 5 times x minus 0.2 squared minus 6.2. And our vertex would be positive 0.2 and a negative 6.2. So it's pretty ugly. All right, we'll go ahead and do one more, I think, here. I think I'll leave the last couple ones for you to try. There's definitely plenty to do. All right, this next one, we have ABC. I'm going to subtract 4. So y minus 4. All right, here we have a negative number we're taking out. So we have to divide everything by -8 on this side. So we have y minus 4 equals -8. And then we get x squared. This becomes a minus, don't forget that. And then you have to do 10 divided by -8, which would be 1.25. Oh, I should probably put my blank spot there. Plus blank. And also over here. And then go off to the side. Let's change colors. And we're going to do -1.25 divided by 2 and square it. So when we divide by 2, we're going to get 0.625. It's going to be negative. Then we have to square it. Which is going to be a fairly bad decimal, 0.39065. Let's just use 0.39. That's fine. 0.391. So we'll have to be a rounded answer. That's fine. So we put 0.391 here as a rounded up. And then the number we're going to put on the other side would be -8 times that. 0.391. So that'd be 3.128. And that's negative. So it kind of gets pretty ugly here. Now if we put these two in the middle here together, the -3.128, -4, that's going to be y minus 7.128. And then we can factor this, -8. And then again, if you remember, the shortcut is to use this number right here. So it'd be x minus 0.625 squared. And then we'll bring this number over by adding it, 7.128. And that'll be our final answer. So it's -8 with x minus 0.625 squared plus 7.128. Pretty ugly. And as a vertex, that would be positive 0.625 and positive 7.128. So yeah, it gets pretty nasty after a little bit. The rest of those will be for you to do. I think maybe I'll just finish up with this last one that doesn't have anything going for it here. We have no numbers at all. So I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing. No different. I'm going to subtract c on both sides. And then we have ax squared plus bx. And then I'm going to take out the a. So I'm going to divide everything by a. So that's going to leave us with x squared plus b divided by a, which I have to write like that. And then leave another blank spot. Then I have to go off to the side, and it's going to be kind of weird. We have to do b over a divided by a, or divided by 2. I'm going to write it like this. And so another way of writing this, we also have to square it. Another way of writing this would be saying b over a times, I don't know if you remember this, you can flip this around and make it 1 over 2. That way it just becomes one nice fraction. So this would be b over a times 2, or 2a. And then we square it. B squared, or b to the second power, would just be b squared. The bottom you have to do it to the 2 and the a, which would be 4a squared. So that's what we're going to put in here. B squared over 4a squared. And then if we multiply the a over here and put on this side, we would have a b squared over 4a squared. And whenever you see this, a over a squared, that can actually cancel out the 1a on top and 1a on the bottom. So there's only 1a on the bottom now. So we have this. And we can factor. This here is not going to be able to go together. It's y minus c. We also have plus b squared over 4a. This side here, we can factor. It's a, and then we have to use this step here, right, when we divide it by 2. We ended up multiplying by 1/2. So that would be x plus b over 2a squared. And the last thing you could possibly do is you could just bring this stuff over by adding c and subtracting b squared over 4a. So we'll do that. So ax plus b over 2a squared. And then if we add c, we have plus c. And we also have a minus b squared over 4a. Now, as a vertex, this is kind of tough because the vertex is going to be the opposite of the inside here. So I'm going to highlight this. And then we also have whatever's after the plus sign here. So this whole thing is also part of your vertex. That's like your y point. So we'd have negative b over 2a, comma, and then c minus b squared over 2a. I know it looks ugly and it looks pretty tough, and it kind of is, but if you don't fully understand it, that's fine. We're going to look at this again later with just these letters and no numbers, and we'll come up with a specific formula for this. So don't worry about too much now. The rest of it you should be able to do and finish up to turn in. And that is the end of 6.5 day 2.